Hello, dear soul family. Welcome to the Meditation Mama podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsey, mama to 3 highly sensitive and intuitive children, and founder of the Meditation Mama Company. On this show, we talk about spirituality, parenting, motherhood, personal growth, intuition, and shifting old paradigms so that you can live your most authentic, soul-aligned life. Each month, I also release special guided meditations and channel transmissions that open your heart, expand your consciousness, and soothe your nervous system. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, I interview my friend Jessica Calderon of the Jway. Jessica is a healer, she is a yoga instructor, and she is also a mentor and guide for women who are looking to connect more deeply with their bodies and their intuition. Jessica and I met because she's also based in Atlanta, and I was very much guided to her to receive an energy healing session. And after that, we just completely hit it off. I just love her energy. She is super, super grounded and also very spiritual. And she is one who very much has done the work, and it's so evident. And she walks the walk that she talks. She is somebody who is just so embodied and so herself, and it's really refreshing to be around her. Jessica is not a mama herself, but she really has this beautiful, motherly, warm, compassionate energy. She's so good at just like listening and receiving, which is a skill I feel like I'm forever working on, and holding space. And so I knew I had to have her on because she is such a beautiful example of what it means to be embodied and grounded and really living her truth. And she also works with so many mamas. So I wanted to hear her perspective on that as well. We chat about connecting to your intuition and how a lot of that is actually through connecting with your body. We talk about being an empath, balancing energy, what it actually means to be embodied and grounded, and finding your authentic self in motherhood and making yourself a priority again after you do go through a big change or after you do have your babies, and why these mini moments of meditation and breath work are so powerful. Jessica's going to give you some amazing tips towards the end of this episode. So I hope you love this as much as I do. It just felt like this episode was like being wrapped up in a blanket with a cup of tea, sitting outside on a chilly fall morning. It just felt like a really, really beautiful, lovely episode to release at the end of November. So I'd love to hear what you think. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Jessica. So I want to dive deeper into how you found your spirituality and started connecting with your intuition.
Yes. So I'll even kind of go back to the beginning.
Sure.
I'll start there because everything kind of leads into the next. But as a young child, I was extremely sensitive, but had no idea what that even meant or any of that. And I really absorbed everything around me. I was a very shy and insecure child, and I just felt the world like on me, heavy energy. I was extremely depressed. I had a lot of anxiety, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that in many ways. Like we all have our own way of being depressed, anxious, all of that. But it was like this constant back and forth. I'd be really depressed, and then like I'd also feel super anxious. Now, of course, I thought that that was normal. I thought that that was just the way that life goes. And I played a lot of sports and did things where I noticed like I couldn't breathe. And so there were a lot of signs that now I can see and look back and say, wow, like I was super depressed and I was super anxious. And it manifested in, I could not breathe. I had a shortness of breath, and it manifested as sickness, as digestive issues. And as I kind of went on my journey, it kind of started through nutrition and just taking care of my physical body. And then I went into like party phase, but that was also a big way of me numbing and not connecting with my emotional body. And then really like this big disconnect of my physical body, my emotional body, my energetic body, and even like my spiritual body, right? So everything started physical first. I went into yoga, and that really was like the first phase of me understanding that I couldn't breathe, and that my body was actually craving a deeper connection, but I did not know that. When I started yoga back in 2005, I recognized like how much I really connected with the breathing and the meditation element, not as much of the physical because I was doing a lot of physical activity already. And I really started to notice that as I think it was like 3 weeks into yoga, I already can feel a profound shift in myself. I noticed that I wasn't as anxious. I wasn't as short. So I had like, this energy about me that I was really irritated all the time too. Like, so my emotions were just kind of all over the place, feeling a range, but I was also not allowing myself to feel it, or I was pushing it down, suppressing all the emotions that I was feeling. And no one really knew that this was going on. Like, I hid this pretty well. And on this journey of myself, whether it be food, nutrition, and then physical, I started to really open up and start to learn more about myself. And I really started to embrace the breadcrumbs that were being shown to me through spirit. Now I know that. And really, when I moved to Atlanta in 2011, that's where I started really going deeper into myself. I could almost say that I had a dark night of the soul, let's say. And a lot of things changed in my life. I was very isolated, and I also kind of isolated myself. But that's kind of where I faced like myself, right? My own hard truths that were coming up for me. And I was presented with a couple Reiki masters in my path. I just kind of felt this like, okay, I keep seeing these synchronicities popping up. I really need to listen to them. So it was a pretty profound journey for me. And everything just like opened up more and more during my.
So many parallels because as you're talking, I'm like, we should have known each other so many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yoga was also my first foray into anything spiritual and the body connection that I deeply, deeply needed in college, and nutrition, of course, as well. And just moving through that phase, still not fully understanding in your 20s. And then you mentioned moving to Atlanta. And for me, that was also very much what you would call like a dark night of the soul, because just like you, knew one or two people here, but not anyone that I was super close with. And didn't have family, didn't have friends, really had to dive inward. I also got pregnant a month into being here, so that was a very isolating experience alone. But it was just as it was meant to be, because we obviously needed to go through that deep work alone. You can't do that when you're in, I mean, you could, but I feel like it's much easier to do when you're in a new environment and you don't have all that outside influence that you're used to, and even like the comfort that you're used to.
Yeah. And I actually think that that was part of why I moved to Atlanta. So I was married just before I moved, and we decided to move together here to Atlanta. However, in hindsight now, I'm like, oh, I was meant to be here for another reason. And it was for me to dive inward, because I wouldn't do that while I was in New York, because I was surrounded by family, friends, partying, all the things. to activate me, to cleanse, clear, and so that I can really do the inner work so that I can teach others to do the same and see how each person, whether they be affected by the story that I'm telling or by the work that we're doing together, they can now evolve into their best version of self, and the layers that come with that, right? So we're constantly on this path and of like refining and evolving for our highest good. And really it's about the journey. There's no destination. It's just continuing to be on that path.
Yeah. I feel that like that's a lesson I'm still learning because I get
Yeah.
really fixated on the destination because I will see something so clearly and I'm like, this is where we're meant to either move, or this is what I'm meant to do in work, or this is what we're meant to do next for something. And I see it so clearly and I get so fixated on that. And I'm continuously being given that message that it is. I even have a book on our coffee table that says it's not the destination, it's the journey. And my son asked me
Yes.
the other day, he goes, what does that say? And I felt like that was another reminder for me. So thank you for that. I clearly need this message
Yeah.
too. I want to dive deeper into intuition and also living an intuitively led life. This seems to be very much an overarching theme for my podcast. I've realized in every guest really is just such a reminder and such an inspiration of how you can live an intuitively led life and just follow the most beautiful path that you never saw coming. And so I want to understand more about how you're helping women just connect to their intuition as a mentor. Probably some of the mamas that are listening now are, maybe just curious about all this. Maybe they're diving into intuition on their own, or maybe they just have a really highly sensitive, intuitive child. So, how do you help these women connect? And what are some of your favorite tips and tricks here?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, same.
So, kind of like intuition to me is many like different layers, or there's different ways in which we connect to our intuition. And some of us are activating it kind of unknowingly. It just happens. We feel it. We experience it. Some people have to practice. And so there's that element. And I look at that as more of like the energetic aspect of it. Then there's the physical body, the body wisdom, and the connection that our body is constantly showing us signs and sensations of connection, of disconnection. And so I really love to look at the body as well as the energetics for intuition. And, some of us will be more connected to the body and feel more in the body, right? And look at certain aspects that's coming up for us. But then there's also the emotional element. So I kind of look at 3 avenues for intuition: the energetics, the emotional, and the physical. And the reason why I look at all those things, and this has also been from experience, because I was so disconnected from my body, I was very heady, and I feel like a lot of people can really relate to this. But, we're walking around very heady, very up energy in our heads, disconnected from our body because we don't want to feel, or we've been told not to feel, or we're scared to feel from trauma or anything like that. So the disconnection happens from our body, from our emotions as well. And then energetically, we're not really connected because we've never really been taught about our energetic bodies and understanding that. So I look at all avenues when I teach it, and when people are truly working and practicing, and guided meditations to get into your body, using breath work to get into your body, to ground yourself. If you're feeling super heady and questioning everything instead of actually just feeling the thing, right? So intellectualizing your feelings, or not trusting your actual body to give you feedback, that's when we notice, okay, there's some kind of disconnection here. And I need to utilize tools like breath work, movement, meditation to connect me back to my body so that I can feel what's actually going on. So there's a lot of different layers of that. First, we have to feel. Then we might have to process energy, then and feel our emotions and tune into that. And then it's also about, okay, is this trauma response in my body, or is this actual expansion in my body for connection as well? So each person is different in that we need to really come back to connection and understand what that actually means and feels like within our body. So I love to do body sensation meditations, energy clearing meditations, and working with that along with some of the physical practices that I just mentioned, breath work and either yoga or somatic work, even going outside in nature, right? And as a human, and what we've learned is, what does this mean? We have to know. We're trying to figure it all out. But instead of going right up into the head of, what should I do? What does this mean? Just feel it. Allow yourself to just be in that experience without a reason. That's how we start to trust ourselves more within our body. Something doesn't feel right in this room. Instead of trying to figure it out, just listen to that and then play that out. It's a practice. Let me leave and see what happens. Right? So it's kind of coming back to like basics of life, but we have to undo or unlearn and decondition. It's like unbecoming. I like to say that too. It's like unbecoming who we think we are and actually becoming our authentic selves, embodying who that is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful way of saying it. And I think another portion of that is also, you touched on the energy healing, but it's knowing what's yours and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've talked about this on probably every single one of these podcast episodes, but it's so easy as an empath, you just soak up everybody's energy, and it can be really difficult to know what's mine and what's not. So to your point, if you do that check-in before you leave your house, how am I feeling right now? When I wake up in the morning, how am I feeling? Tuning into the different parts of your body, tuning into your mind, your energy, and then noticing how you feel in a certain place and like how your energy is affected. That really feels like step one to me, and that's something I'm really working on with my children too.
Yeah. Can I bring up something?
Yeah.
Something that might not be the popular opinion.
Okay. Please share.
however, with the whole empathic energy, I find that even if, say, I'm with you and you're at like a 3% anxiousness, and I'm starting to feel that a little bit more. Again, I'm saying I'm picking it up from you. But I do believe that, like, if you spot it, you got it. So I do believe that even, yes, we are empathic. We're taking things in. All of it. However, I do feel that there is some part of us that is recognizing we have that in us as well. So like maybe I have been a little anxious and I haven't really felt it fully, or I haven't really experienced it fully, or something like that. And so when I'm around you and I'm feeling that, it's activating within myself. So I also think that there's a little element of that within us, that yes, we are empathic and we pick up other people's energies and emotions collectively. We do that on so many, but there also has to be a little part of that that's living within us that we are now experiencing. Maybe it's amplified, maybe to that degree, but I do feel like there is some part of us that has that within us, and that's why it activates. And what's our part in that? Like, what responsibility do I have in that? because I also believe that we are divinely protected and that we can put protection around us and we can use all the tools, the crystals and all the things, the meditations. But I also believe that if there's a part of us that's in fear, even a little part of us that's in fear, we give our power away right away. The minute we're like, oh, I feel a little fear, we're giving our power away in that regard. So we are feeling more open and susceptible to taking on other people's stuff. So yes, there'll be different degrees of this. Yes, this is layered. And then over the past couple of years, I've started to feel like, well, sometimes I can be really empowered in my being around a bunch of people that feel anxious, mad, sad, all the things. And I don't feel that I am taking on or feeling that at the same capacity that maybe when I'm vulnerable or when I'm in fear. And PS, like we're all going to be feeling fear, feeling all the different things, right? There's no negative or good. It's just what it is. We're having a human experience. We're here to feel all the emotions. So if you're feeling these things, it doesn't mean you're bad and you have to figure something out or anything like that. It's just awareness around that. And also just experiment with that. Does that feel like it's your truth? Maybe not. And that's also important.
That is such an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
As you're talking about that, I'm just thinking of the parallel of relationships and how your biggest trigger with your partner or say your close friend, your family member, it always goes back to you. It's always something within you as well. So I'm going to start looking out for that. You also brought to mind something that I do often, and I'm curious if you've noticed this with yourself or because I feel like I'm a natural energy healer and I know you
Yes.
know you are
Yes,
too.
you are. I'm going to say yes, you are.
Thank you. And I've kind of, my mom has sort of told me, ever since I was a kid, she'd be like, you have such healing hands. And people would just say, like, you have healing energy when I was in a certain space. And I feel like I am often this transmuter, whether intentionally or unintentionally, where, say, I'm having a conversation and a neighbor comes up and she is super anxious and super kind of like wound up that day. I find myself getting extra super calm and being extra slow. And none of it isn't intentional. I notice it
Mm-hmm.
after a bit, but it's just something I'm naturally doing to kind of balance the energy in the situation. Do you find yourself doing that? What are your thoughts on the transmutation of energy just naturally occurring? And maybe that's why we are
Yes.
such empaths, because that's part of our purpose as well. I've thought of that too.
Absolutely 100% in agreement with that. I feel that so deeply as part of work with people. So yes, you doing that, absolutely. It's like you become like the tuning fork. You become the sound bowl for the situation and experience. And it could be through your voice that you are activating something within another that is transmuting that energy. So you're becoming that so that you can embody it and allow the other person to feel that as well. So I actually feel that I do that in like my ceremonies, right?
For
Or in
sure.
group experiences that people are there of all walks of life. We all come together. And if, some people are fearful, like I even noticed a lot of that over the past couple of years specifically, that people will come into the space. I know their situation. I know that they're nervous and, fearful just in life. And I can see they transform like right before your eyes of, being more open, being more vulnerable. And you can see that shift within another and then feel that shift within another.
Good point. There are so many nuances,
I
and
know.
I was just saying this to my husband the other day. He was bringing up a certain topic, and I said, "You know me. I live in the gray. I do not live in the black and white. I can very much see all sides of any situation. I can relate to any person, no matter the horrible things they've done or the wonderful things they've done. I can always find something that I can relate to. So it's
Mm.
just, yeah, we live in the gray. And
Yeah.
especially I think as you do open up more spiritually, you really become more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's like I feel, and I think you could probably relate to this too. It's like I feel like I'm the weirdest normal person, whatever you want to say that is, right? It's like
Yeah.
I could present myself in a way that just, I can connect with any kind of person, right? And still have a conversation with them. I can go super like out there, spiritual, deep dive, energetic stuff, and then I can talk like about life and what's going on in the world. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, multidimensionality, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way too. And even just like in my day, it's like I can go from being with the kids and then being that like grounded mom and then talking to my mom friends at preschool. And then I come back and I'm in my zone and working on my meditations. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
chatting on a podcast and then I'm working out at the gym. And I mean, it's just, yeah, it's multidimensionality. It actually
Love
brings
it.
me to another question I have for you because as I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you for the podcast, you truly are one of the most grounded and also very spiritual people that I know. It's rare, I've found, as I have worked with various spiritual mentors. What does being embodied, like fully embodied and grounded, mean to you? Because I remember as I was diving into, all things spirituality, being like, embodied, embodied. This term keeps coming out. Like, what does that mean exactly? And now I have my own definition, but I'm curious what it means for you and what you would want to share with the listeners about that.
Yes. So embodied to me really takes in like you are living your authenticity. You are living your truth. You are living what you talk and what you practice. And think about a habit, right? When we do things on autopilot, when we do things that just become our day, that to me is embodiment. You are embodying what you speak, your actions line up with your words, your actions line up with who you are. I won't share it until I feel it is within me, because then it's just easy to talk about it because it is me, right? It becomes a tool that I utilize. It becomes something that I'm so connected with. And then I share that with everyone, right? A lot of the times, if I deep dive into something, it's going to become an offer of mine. It's going to become part of working with me if it resonates with me on a deep level, because that is what I become super passionate about. And I now want to share, oh my God, look at what has impacted me. And now I want this tool or this practice to be shared with others in their own way. And that's the other part of how I like to teach or work with other people. And I think that that's really important as we evolve and grow. Our practices are evolving and growing as well. And so our practices need to evolve with us.
Yeah, I feel that so, so much. I remember going through my first year of motherhood and I went through postpartum anxiety and a little bit of depression. And I came out that year so much stronger. And I remember being like, how can I use this to help other women?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? And it just wasn't coming to me because I hadn't embodied it yet. And I think it took me longer than I would have liked to fully integrate what happened and what I went
Mm-hmm.
through and really embody it. I probably didn't fully understand it until I went through it again with my third. And now I'm like, what a gift. I'm so grateful for things like that. These times that can be looked at as really dark times in our lives where we grow and change so much and then are able to embody that knowledge and use it to help other people heal and grow and shift. So I really resonate with
Absolutely.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, that the idea of embodiment is like you are becoming, or like you are living that. I like to say, like, become the living embodiment of your authenticity, because that's what we're doing when we're doing these practices. If you're doing the practice of breath work, meditation, any spiritual practice, if you're just checking a box and saying, okay, go on, that's where you kind of plateau. And that's why, people will do that in the beginning. And then they're like, but nothing, okay, my life changed a little bit, but now I want to go deeper, and it's not happening, because that's also getting into the feminine, diving deep into the being of the feminine. And in the feminine energy, there's no checking off the boxes. That's more masculine, which is not wrong or bad. It's just what it is. And how do you balance the two? And as a highly masculine or heady person, we will look to, in the beginning of our kind of spiritual journey, or middle of our spiritual journey, when we want to go to that deeper level, we're trying to do more. And it's in the being more where that profound shift starts to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge, huge lesson for me. And I think
I think
there's a
all of
lot of
us.
people, I think there's a lot of people who haven't learned that lesson yet. We're just so
Yeah,
conditioned as a society to go, 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 go. And productivity is such an interesting term, because being productive, it's like, well, what does it mean to you? My productivity could be taking a nature walk in the morning, and then meditating, and then grounding, and then taking a salt bath, and it could be self-care. But for a
right.
lot of people, it's how much can you get done in this finite amount of time that you have in your day? And that's
Mm-hmm.
just like a whole nother layer of deconditioning, especially in the United States. You go to other countries
Absolutely.
and it's like, oh, I can breathe and relax
Yep.
and just sit and have a 3 hour meal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic here for us. And also just remembering that, like, it's always the perfect timing, right? We want things to be faster, quicker, this and that. But when you arrive in that preferred destination, let's say, it's exactly as it needs to be, right? Like, I look at my journey and I could have said, oh, I wish I learned Reiki and yoga and all the things earlier on than I have. But you know what? I wasn't open to it. It was exactly how I needed to see and experience everything. It's just, that is what it is. And we have to remember that.
Yeah. And I feel like going through these different journeys and these different transformations, these different levels of who am I, then you have so much more compassion as you do have these clients come in, and you can see a little bit of yourself in probably every single one,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, I've been there. I know exactly what that feels like. I was
Absolutely.
wondering, do you ever get women who come in and they're just like, I don't know who I am. Like, how do I find my authenticity? How do I find that shine? What do
Absolutely.
you do
And
with them? Because I feel like a
yeah.
lot of mamas, me included, you go
Mm-hmm.
through this, every single one that I know that I've talked to about this, you go through this phase of, my identity just shifted literally overnight. And who am I now? And what do I actually want to do for my career? Or do I want to stay at home? Or what do I want my life to look like? I thought I wanted it to look like this, but maybe I want it to look like this. So, what do you tell those clients? Like, how do you help them walk through that?
Yeah, I actually, and that's a really great question, because I have people either, yeah, coming out of like motherhood or just having a baby, but then I also have people that want to change jobs, and they just feel like I am not in this authentic path. But a lot of times I find that there is a disconnection, or the coherence of the heart and the mind are off. So what happens is we need to realign our energetics and clear out the emotional energy that feels trapped, or, because that will also make us feel disconnected, right? Like, oh, I don't feel creative. I feel stagnant energy, that kind of a thing. I'm not connected to my purpose, because sometimes we think our purpose is our career, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not doing the thing that I actually love. But is it really that you're not doing the thing that you love, or are you doing things that are not lining up with your authentic self? Like on an everyday, it's the small things that mean so much, not just like the work, the career, the mama, like to, whatever you are, and the identity that you're labeling yourself as. I think that also kind of throws us. So it's really, to me, it's a big energetic shift. It's working with your energetics, and not, this is where also we have to get aligned, and knowing that it will happen in the perfect timing. Because another thing is, we want to say, okay, I'll just align my energetics. We have to let go of what we think things should look like, be like, and stay present in our bodies. This is where we're coming back to being grounded. This is where we're coming back to our body, because we don't know how fast or as slow as our process will be. But what we do know is that I can connect right here, right now, with my breath. I'm going to let the mind that's, going on a hamster wheel of, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to do this? What is it going to look like? That I'm going to be here and get my energetics right to feel what I want to feel like. We're creating every aspect of our lives. So if we don't like what we see, that's where we have to tune in energetically. Am I connected to my body? Am I connected to my emotions? Something's off. Let me clear that. Let me do that work. And then it unravels as it needs to be, which, as a society in this world, we don't like to hear that, because we're like, well, I just want to know where I'm going to be in a week, in a month, in a year.
Right.
But if we keep going outside of ourselves and keep going to that future, we're not here. This is where the future lives, within our bodies, right here, right now.
Right.
And so if we're not, I've had people come to me, I really want to dive deep into intuition, and I want to have this like profound experience. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to work with some meditation. And already they're like, oh, I don't want to meditate. I don't want to, or like, yeah, okay. And they get so excited. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do, some practices, and we start small. But then, a week goes by and they're like, there's not everyone, but, some people, me included in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get to meditate this week. Oh, work happened. And all of a sudden there's all these excuses. Oh, I couldn't because of this. Oh, I couldn't because of that. I couldn't because of da, 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 da. And in the end, they're excuses. I'm sorry, but they are, because it means that you're not fully committed and devoted to yourself. You're putting everyone else before you. And I understand, you have a child, you have this, all the things that happen, right? Like I hear it with moms a lot. And yes, but how can you carve out space? But one thing my mom, she had said was, when I was born and then my brother, she really realized the only way that she's going to be able to like work with herself and, connect with herself, instead of like waking up, doing things for the kids. She was like, all right, I have to wake up early. I have to wake up early. And so that she made it, that she did whatever she wanted to do in the morning, got ready. She was all ready to go and be in that mothering, giving, nurturing space when my brother and I woke up. So like, that's what she planned to do. And it worked, because before that she was like, like getting, I could only imagine, like you get resentful to some degree. You're irritable, you're annoyed, you're frustrated. Why can't I do things for myself? So it may be early in the morning. It may be at night. You find the space. I know you do. You've cultivated, that hour out of your day, and you kind of have that set time.
Yeah.
Obviously things happen every once in a while. Fine. But it's like, you make yourself a priority at some point. You have to, because that is the essence of what you're embodying, and then you're teaching others by example, just by energetically showing up, you're already inspiring others to be that
Yeah,
in their own way.
absolutely. And I was just saying this to my husband the other night. I was saying, I forget what it was in response to, but I was saying to him, there's always a way. Regardless of the question or what you're trying to figure out, there's always a way. So it's extremely challenging, yes, to meditate with littles with maybe unpredictable nap schedules and
Of
all
course.
different schedules. But for me, I have the beauty of timing quiet time with nap time, and that is my time. Do I get interrupted sometimes? Sure do. Mommy, I have to poop. You never know. But that's my time. And if I can't make it happen then, I will do a car meditation on the way home from preschool drop off. I will, if I have to fold laundry, I will put on solfeggio frequencies and just kind of do this like active meditation or a body scan or what have you. So you can always find these little moments. You can take your baby on a walk and do a walking meditation. I know that I felt like meditation had to look a certain way, and not just meditation, a lot of things had to look a certain way in the beginning. And I think once you give yourself grace and flexibility and you realize, okay, I can make my meditation practice whatever I want it to be. What works for one person doesn't work for another, and I can choose my method. I can create my own method, you know, then it all opens up. But you just have to be flexible, like you were saying, and letting go of attachment is huge with anything.
Yes, that's actually such a huge, I love that you just said all of that too, because yeah, if you can't go to your yoga class, you can do 10 minutes of like sun salutations, right? Or you find what works for you, but you still do something, right? 1 minute of something. 1 minute of breath work could be so profound and like shift everything. So if you can't meditate for half an hour, do it for 2 minutes, do it for a minute, right? Like you said. So I 100% agree with that. And I think that that is a really profound message for people too, because people think it needs to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Meditation, yoga, going for a walk, like walk outside, breathe the fresh air, open up a window, like
Yeah.
do something.
I was the same
It,
way too. I used to be that way where I was like, if I can't do an hour-long yoga class, I'm not doing it. It's not worth my
yeah,
time. But
same.
I have found over the years that those mini moments add up so much more than, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love having a full 45 to an hour to meditate. But if I can just do like 3 or 4 mini meditations throughout my day, if I can't do that hour long session, I still feel amazing. And the days that I don't
Absolutely.
do it, I'm like, oh, I feel so off. I feel irritable. I feel maybe a little anxious and I don't feel as centered. So I do think the mini moments for a lot of people, that's the key, especially all you mamas listening.
Yes, 100%. And I actually, in my mentorship, and when I work with people, I actually recommend that instead of doing like a 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute meditation in the morning. I mean, first of all, that's not happening as a start. But anyway, I'd almost prefer for people to do little one, little one, little one, like 5 minute ones throughout the day, because that's another part of someone can meditate an hour in the morning and then go about their day and just kind of like spin out, because we're so overly stimulated just from the phones and the computers and all the things, right? We're doing so much as a society that sometimes the smaller ones throughout the day, or like breath breaks, and when I say that, obviously we're breathing, but intentional breathing practices for a minute every hour or something like that, because that can also get you in your body, get you connected, and you're doing that more often throughout the day, which now brings in that more embodied practice. Like you're tuning into yourself, you are connecting with yourself. The more you do that, the more that will shift for you.
Yeah. We've been starting to do something in my house because I've been telling you this for a while, but I'm like, I need to incorporate more breath work. And I do a lot of deep breathing, but I want to do more true breath work. And so I was
Mm,
thinking, how do I do that? I'm going to incorporate my kids. So
yes,
I know you'll love this. We've been doing
I
this
love
thing, and my
it.
husband gets in on it too, where we'll take a deep breath and then we'll hum it out. Because as you know,
Mm,
humming is an extremely calming practice. It activates your vagus nerve, which just calms your whole nervous system. And so my kids are obsessed with it, and we'll make it a game. Like, who can hum it out the longest now? And they love it. And we're all just like as zened out as you can be with a 2, a 4, and a 6-year old, but just so much more relaxed afterwards. And my husband is not a meditator, which is a bit of a thorn in my side as someone who creates meditations for a living. And I said, you know what? What if we just do like 2 minutes of breath work in the morning to get our day going or at night? And he was like, yeah. And now he's like, I'm liking this. He's into it. So I also think for the men, sometimes meditation they're not as into that, but they all seem to really like breath work. At least the women that I talk to who are like, my husbands don't meditate, but they can get them to do the breath work.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
because breath work, you can feel it pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So it's that a little bit of that instantaneous like feeling and sensation that you're receiving. Oh, I do feel more calm after I just did, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, of breathing, 3 minutes, usually 3 minutes of breath work if it's not like a fast breath work, but 3 minutes of breath work helps to stimulate the parasympathetic rest and digest relaxation. So whenever someone's starting out with breath work, like alternate nostril breathing or just intentional like belly breathing or something like that, 3 minutes is that sweet spot that you can start with. And then the more you do breath work, the more you will get into that state in a shorter period of time.
It's just like
So that's
meditation. You
pretty,
just got to
yep,
train your body. This
exactly.
is what's happening. And then
Training.
you'll just drop right in.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
love that. And yeah, breath work, like for someone who's like, well, I can't meditate
Yeah.
and it doesn't work for me. Like start with the breath work,
Mm-hmm.
find some breath work practices that feel good to you and start with that. And then you can kind of switch it up and change it up. But I love mamas like working with their kids and making it fun and making it a game and doing breath work and meditation maybe with the kids. Like if some mom is like, oh, I don't have time because I have to do this with my child or this, like incorporate that in, because even if it feels like you're not doing something as much and you're really focusing on the kid, you're still encouraging them to cultivate these practices at a young age. So imagine what that's going to do for them and you, because now they get it, right? So as they get older too, it's like, oh, this is mommy's time. Oh, well, this is my time too. So it's really nice to start to bring that in.
Yeah. And they are just absorbing everything that we're doing. And even if they seem uninterested, if they don't want to do it, they still are very much seeing what you're doing and absorbing that. And eventually, at some point, they're going to start doing it, or they're going to incorporate something or share with a friend, what have you. So,
Yeah, if they're like,
yeah.
oh, mommy's really relaxed after she does that thing, maybe I want to try that.
Mm,
Or I'm going to let mommy do that thing and not bother her because it makes her happy,
yeah.
right? So,
Yes. 100%. Oh, this is such a good chat, Jess. Thank you so much. It's
yes,
perfect. Okay,
I love it.
so what are your current offerings? And you have a lot of fun things going on. And where can the listeners find you?
Okay, so listeners can find me at my website, thej-way.com. So I have all my things there, all my offerings. I also am on Instagram, Jessica the Jway, all one word. And so as far as my offers go, I do have a lot, but basically I have mentorship one-on-one. I also incorporate the embodied yoga practice, which I was kind of mentioning before, which is basically working with me to connect with the body and all my tools that I share. It's a weekly practice that we connect with, and I do that virtually or in person. I also have my Mystic Moon Goddess membership, which is all about connecting to our intuition and our creativity and our feminine energy. And so I have that as a virtual offering as well. And of course, my energy sessions that I do, which is kind of like one of my signature offers that I've been doing for 8 or so years.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much to Jessica Calderon for being here, and we will see you next time. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the Meditation Mama podcast. Your support means the world to me, so if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with a loved one. Check out my meditations and all of my offerings at themeditationmama.com and sign up for my newsletter and you will receive 2 free meditations. I would also love to hear from you, so send me a message on my Instagram at @the_meditationmama or an email on my website. See you next time.